Hey crafty friends, welcome back. This is Angie Caney and my channel Tink's Treasures. And this week I wanted to go ahead and make a mini album, but not just a typical mini album. I'm going to kind of simplify this and we're going to make it with the Anna Griffin Waterfall Dies. So last summer, not quite a year ago, we went on a trip to Oregon. And I have a few photos to put in there, but not a lot. So I just want to make this fairly small and on the simple side. So we're going to be using the waterfall die set from Anna Griffin. She had this out a while back. I wish she'd put dates on these just so that it could be referenced. But these are the dies that go with it. And then the paper I chose was the new Graphic 45 Adventure at Weights. Now I didn't get the whole set. I did get several pieces loosely from the collection, and I want this to be my front cover. And then since I didn't get the entire collection, I just thought, well, at home I know I have other paper that should work with this. So just to give you an idea, I do have the Country Rustic collection, and now I bought this quite a while ago. I want to say I got this at Hobby Lobby. And then I also have Hobby Lobby, it's the Paper Studio, the Dendrology collection, and this is all wood, right? So I'm like, oh, well, that'll work. I don't have to get the whole collection. But really, maybe if this was 8.5 by 11 or 8 by 8, the images would have been smaller and may have worked with this better. But really, I just decided not to use this. I did pull one sheet out of here, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make this my front cover, and here is the back if you haven't seen this or used this yet. And then this is what I pulled out of that rustic set. So I feel like this is going to work well. I'm going to put this on as the back cover. It kind of goes with the boat dock. So I'm going to put those two together. And then if you haven't seen this yet, I did pull out the cut aparts one just because I thought they were always so beautiful. So there's this page, and then this is full of cut aparts on the reverse side. So, best day, raise a paddle, I love you to the shoreline and back, lake days are the best days. And Graphic 45, in my opinion, is the best out there for paper lines. So I got a second set just because I can use the reverse side of this. And this is another sheet of cut aparts, Adventure at Weights, Big Skies and Bigger Dreams. So, you can cut out each of these little pieces, little wood pieces, to put as ephemera in your book. And then on the back side of that is a nice plaid. And then because I didn't get all of their pieces, I came home and I just made these myself to go with it. So there's a nice gingham navy check. And then I did do just kind of a nature with a navy blue background. And then I just pulled out a few pieces of navy blue pieces that were in my stash. They're not all identical, but I think it'll work for the purpose that I have. And then these are the things I picked up when I was in Oregon. We went up to Timberline Lodge. Now, ironically, these are all magnets, but I think they'll work just as well as embellishments in the book. So I have these here, and even the background sheet of this could be used as some type of background. And I saved a ticket and a little map for a small hike that we went on. So those are the pieces that I have to work with for this. And then if you haven't used the waterfall feature before, I did just kind of give myself a reminder about how to put it together. So this is my little mock-up. So what you're going to be doing is just putting your pieces together, and then you're going to be able to slide and pull. And you're going to be able to get 1, 2, 3, 4 sheets on this, or pictures, and then there's room for a small something underneath, and we'll address that when we get there. So I'm going to make 2 of these. And then a couple weeks ago when we did the demo on the room, my craft room, and I was cleaning everything out, I did come across a couple leftover pieces of this balsa wood. And so I thought, why not make this my covers and spines? So that's my plan, is to cut these with a utility knife, and I am going to assemble it with this. And the other thought was, oh, that if I had enough pieces to be able to make this like a trifold, but I'm not, just because I don't have enough pictures to go into it, and I do want to keep this a little bit on the simple side. So let me cut this down. So I'm going to use an old craft mat just because I don't want to worry about cutting into this glass mat. Then you can see I had this. This was going to be a Cricut project, but it never cut out. In fact, I have the original Explorer, and it wasn't working, and I didn't want to damage my machine. So I asked a friend of mine, and she has the Maker 3, to bring hers over. No, it might just be the original Maker. So I'm not sure if it's the original Maker or Maker 3, but it didn't cut either. And then I'm just going to use this as my spine. I don't need much. Like a 1-inch spine should be fine. Okay, there we go. And it is, I don't know how sturdy this is really going to be, but I feel like once we get it together and assembled, the book will kind of hold its shape and give it some stability. Okay, so I have my 3 pieces here. I've got my spine and my front and back cover. And for the moment, I'm going to go ahead and make the waterfall feature. So I think this should work on the smaller plates. Yeah, and it just fits. So we can cut your paper down to just fitting. So let's bring in my trimmer, and then I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. And I'm going to try cutting 2 at a time. And not quite. So I'm going to send it back through again. And I probably should have paid better attention to the orientation. You're not really going to notice it, but I think I should have had it going up like this, but it is what it is now. And then we need to cut one of the bases for the waterfall that's actually going to be the pulling mechanism. So this is exactly 6 inches. So I think I can cut my paper down out of the one sheet that I like the most. Well, the one sheet I like the most isn't quite as good. So I'm going to go with a little bit of a lighter one. No, I'm going to go with the darker one just because I like it. And as I was kind of prepping for all of this, I was looking through my stash. And over the years, I feel like I have just collected so much paper that I'm like, oh, I'm good for years to come. But that's not the case. So I started making a list of paper that I need to go pick up. Like, I'm out of like the basics, like black and white. How are you ever out of black and white? I mean, I know those are common colors that you use the most, but it just seems like something I should have on hand. So that's going to cut it out for the shape that we need, and then it's going to put in these score marks, and we're going to do some folding and creasing there. Okay, not sure why we didn't cut all the way through. And then there's a little pull tab, but I'm going to wait and see what paper I have left over and maybe use a pattern piece with this that coordinates. And then lastly, we need 2 of these little bands that's going to hold it together. And this I know is 8.5 inches. And you're not going to see this, so I might just grab a scrap of something to use for this instead. Oh, and look at that. I have a scrap of this. So let me grab my long plates. And I'm going to need 2, so I'm going to try and line it up so that we get enough out of this. And then we'll just send that right back through. And I have heard, like, if you run your die through at an angle, you're going to get different pressure rather than just lining it up and going through straight. So it might be helpful if you have a wonky die to run it through at an angle. Okay, so let's build the waterfall. We need to fold and crease each of these score lines. And you want to be able to work it back and forth so that you get good movement when you're pulling. Okay, once you feel like you've got that working pretty good, what we're going to do is that the creases are going to be on the top facing up, and we're going to put adhesive on the back. So adhesive of your choice, and what I have on hand right now is this thin tear tape. You want to make sure you're not going over your edge there. And I'm going to put another piece on just because this is where you want the strength of your mechanism, because this is going to be doing all the heavy lifting. So you need to make sure it's going to stay in place. And it wouldn't even hurt if you put like a dab of wet glue on, which, assuming my glue might work, oh, it will. For once, I'll put a couple dabs on just before we put it on, which I guess could be now. Okay, just make sure it does not go beyond that score line, because we need this to be able to move. Okay, so you're going to line it up with your top and fold it back. And then we're going to take that long tab. I'm going to fold on the crease mark again. And then we're going to glue it here, whichever you prefer to think of it, at 2 1/4 inches from the bottom. So let me put on some more tape. You can see this right here. I'm just going to line it up to 2 1/4. Push it down, and then it kind of falls into place on the other side. So we're just going to push it down. And then we're going to thread this through. And then make sure you're going to line it up at the bottom. And we're going to put some tape here too. So you don't want it to go all the way to the edge, because this is going to come down. And you can probably make a little mark with a pencil if you want. So you can see how it's just going to show a little bit on the edge there. So you don't want to go edge to edge. Okay, and then so we're going to glue this down onto our book. And we're going to cut out our little tab once I figure out what paper to go here. But here we go. This is how it's going to work. So we're going to put little cards right in here for photo mats. Maybe just the actual cut aparts from the paper. So let me go ahead and assemble the second one. Okay, so we have our second waterfall feature. And I know I just fast forward through all that because I just demoed the first one. And there's no need to go see that a second time. So here we are. I have my 2 waterfall pieces. So I'm going to start assembling the book. And so my covers are 8 wide and 8.5 tall. So I'm going to start by trimming off the little tag. And then what I'm going to do, and I don't know if you are an album maker, is that I enjoy making albums, but I have to say I don't do it that often. Maybe just a couple a year. So I want to give myself at least a 1/2 inch that we're going to fold over. So I'm going to go ahead and put my adhesive on it and get it in place. You know, well, I was going to say, it's before you do that, you could just go ahead and cut it down to size, but I'm going to kind of wing this. Because I know I want to get my spine in here, but I will probably go ahead and cover, and this is the front, so I'm probably going to go ahead and cover the back separately because that is going to be a separate piece of paper. And so I'm just going to slip this in here. No, I'm not, because I put it the wrong direction. This is why we watch and we don't judge. So I'm going to line it up this way, and then I'm going to lay it down to give myself some space in between the spine and the cover, because you want it to be able to move. So I'm going to cover this one. And I'm going to be able to take it up to the edge because I'm going to slide it in here, and this is going to overlap in the back just a little. So I'm going to line it up. It doesn't have to be exact because I'm going to wrap it in the side. But just try and keep it as close as possible will help. And then I'm just going to cut this down. Okay, and then if you haven't done covers before, there are little tools out there that you can line up in your corner. But basically you want to miter this corner, so you just want to get as close to the tip as possible without getting too close. You know, measure once, cut twice. So I'm going to give myself just a hair of room right there, so if I could come back and trim that up, I can. So that one came out almost perfect. And this one's good. So I'm going to go ahead and put more of my score tape down and a little wet glue just because I want it to hold. I don't want this coming up. So while I'm getting this glued down, I'm just curious if anybody else has that little tool, if they like it. I just never got around to getting one. And you know, worst case scenario, I'll show you this afterwards. If you didn't get your corners just right, you can keep your corner scraps and go over it. And then when you put down your base paper, you're really not going to see it anyway. Okay, so you can see that it's just not quite exact. And if that bothers you, just take your little corner and put it right there and no one will ever know. But we're going to put this right here. And I'm just going to give myself, again, enough space just for it to be able to move. I don't know if I can move this or not. I'm thinking I want it just a hair closer. And if you want someone who, like, if you want a scrapbook cover making tutorial, Rosa Kelly, she whips them out like crazy. Like, I don't know how she does them so fast. So you could always look her up on YouTube. She does a ton of mini albums, and she has some interactive ones, and she puts pockets in them and pop-ups and all sorts of things. And then I'm almost out of this tear tape, so I'm going to put I'm going to order some more on Amazon, and I'm going to put a link for it in the description box below. So if you ever want to order anything from the links I put in or anybody else's links that you might watch on YouTube, it doesn't cost anything for you when you order it. There's no extra charge or fee or anything like that. But as creators, we do get a tiny percentage, like pennies, but the pennies can add up. So if you ever want to help support the channel, you can always use the links for the products that are in the videos. That would be much appreciated, for sure by me, and I'm sure by others as well. Let me see if I can get this in here. So you can see I gave myself just a little bit of extra room, and it should cover my corners nicely. So you can see how it's covering much better. And I'm going to put the end edge down first, and then I'm going to bring my bottom and top pieces over it. So I'm going to continue putting my little tear tape on, and then just adding some glue right before I put it down, because the tear tape is really going to hold it in place. But in my opinion, the wet glue is what's going to do the long-lasting job, because I've used like my ATG runner from back in the day, and you can get the permanent adhesive for it, and it does stick a lot better. But even over time, like I have so many albums that are 5 and 10 years old, and you can just tell that the ATG has just kind of dried, and it's pulling away now from the papers or the chipboard, whatever it is you're using. So I like to make sure I always use wet glue. And if you're wondering, this is my glitter art glue. The label has worn off over years, and I just keep refilling it. So I do like that glue. But you can see how my corners covered much nicer. And then you want to take like your bone folder or this scraper and kind of work in the paper to your creases. And that way you'll kind of just warm it up, and you'll be able to get better movement out of it. You don't want to do too much that you're going to tear your paper, but you just want to get the paper moving. So the paper I picked out for my inside cover is this gingham check that I made. And I think I'll have a strip left over that I can just run down the spine. And I'll put the spine on first, and then I'm going to cover over it with this paper so that it covers nicely. And I considered putting in like 1 or 2 pages right here, or anything else for that matter, and nothing was coming to mind that I really liked. So I'm just going to leave that open and maybe even put in like just some stickers or a blank sticker that you can write the date on, location, that type of stuff. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I don't like to measure. I'm just going to eyeball this and make a mark. And then I can cut it the same for both pieces. And you know, I lied. I think that would look better, just so that it's not, it'll break it up. So I'm just going to trim my edges and glue it down as is. I'm not even going to worry about trimming it down. And look, that was a nice coincidence. Oh, and you know what? I need to turn it. So I may need to trim this down just a hair. And also, I like this paper trimmer. It's an older one, but Fiskars still makes the same thing that has this guide wire. I really like it for lining things up. Some people don't, but I find it very helpful when you're guiding your pieces to make sure you get the right cut. So I'm going to put this one in, put these up here so I don't lose my orientation. And I actually hope I have enough of this tear tape And then since I'm making a list of like supplies, I have ordered paper from Amazon before. And it was just like some random ones here and there that were okay. Like the last one I ordered, which I should have just ordered from my order history. But I took a chance on one, and the paper's fine, but it said ivory. It's not ivory. So I was curious if anybody else likes to order their paper from Amazon, like say, not necessarily a random pattern series, but just like your core basics paper, your blacks, your creams, your blues, your pinks, your whatever. And if you have, what do you like? If you could leave that in the comments below, I would appreciate it. And for those who also might be watching to get some alternatives for paper sources. Because for years and years, I used to just get mine at either Michael's or Joann's, whatever was on sale. And sometimes back in the day, if you guys remember Tuesday morning, they would have a small paper crafting section. And sometimes they would bring in, good scrapbook paper. And so I would get from there also. But, Tuesday morning's no longer around. We're still mourning the loss of Joann's. So for me, in my area, my sources are, if I drive, I can go to Hobby Lobby, and then I can catch Michael's on the way, or we have Walmart. And if you've ever got stuff at Walmart in the craft section, their paper crafting is very limited. Like you might be able to grab a few supplies. But there's, you know, a couple companies that I feel like have quality paper. Recollections, Michaels carries that. That always has worked well for me. And I also have the Stamp and Scrapbook Expo coming up in September. So I'll keep my eye out there for any paper sources. Oh, and if I drive far enough, there is one local scrapbook store still local to me, and that is Scraps of Love, and that's in Peoria in Arizona. So I just want to work the paper so it doesn't tear or crack. But there you can see our front cover, our spine, and then the back cover. And I think that paper looks really good with it. And then our inside. So for the inside, here is where we're going to put our pieces. And you know what I might do, just because we have a little bit of room, is so what if we made that a hinge? I don't know. Okay, so I'm not going to glue that down at the moment. I'm going to see how many pictures and how many cut aparts to use. Okay, continuing on. So I was originally thinking I'm going to have two simple waterfall features. However, when I started to lay things out, I realized I'm going to turn this one. So let me show you. I went through and I cut apart the cut aparts. So this is what we have, just to give you an idea. Like, I really want to use these as kind of like a cover page for my little albums. I don't know. I'm working on that idea. And then I thought I have a few extra photos left over. So what my plan is to use these. I'm going to put them on as photo mats. And you know, as I was going through this, it would be really nice. And there is another sheet over here with cut aparts on it. And I really would like a vertical one. I don't know. I might just wait before I just start cutting into that, because maybe I won't. And I'll just put the pictures on. So this was our trip to Mount Hood. And then when you pull, it's going to flip for you. So let me pick up my glue. Add a few of these. And what my idea is that I'm going to glue down the waterfall to the base more like a pocket. So I'm going to do these three edges because you need this to be stable to pull against. But then this will be open up here, and I'll be able to put the extra photos like on here, and then leave that open for journaling. So that is my plan. Maybe not this particular one. I don't know. I'm working, because now I'm going to have these edges showing. So I don't know if that's an issue or not for me. Maybe I'll cover it up with some cardstock. So let me just glue these down with you real quick, and then I'm going to assemble I don't want to take up a whole bunch of time. I don't know how much time I've already used, because otherwise this video will go on forever and ever. But I think that'll give me good placement right there. So if I line it up right here, that should work. And then here, I'm thinking I'm going to have some extra photos left over, but I'm going to just glue down these 3 sides, and then that way I'll have a spot over here. And initially when I was kind of laying this out, I'm like, oh, I could flip this up, but I just don't think that'll make this sturdy enough, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, off camera, to make this process just go a little bit faster, I went ahead and cut out my photo mats and adhered the pictures and got the score tape ready to adhere this on. And then I actually need to add this real quick. It took me a minute to figure out which of the cut aparts I wanted to use, because there was another scene that I liked just as well, but so much of the inside of this is blue, I wanted blue to be the feature. And then when you have these photo mats on here like this, rather than just putting your pictures on, that's going to give you a spot on the back to either put another picture, or here's where we can put in the cut aparts to add some of the designer papers, just to add interest to your book. So I want this to be my top one, and you're going to be able to get 5. I didn't put one here, but 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to add one more. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm just going to line it up to this score line. And then we can add our other photo mats. Okay, now, fingers crossed. If all goes well, this should pull. And it does. Okay, and so I have spots back here that we can go ahead and put in other cut aparts or other pictures. Oh, see, when you do this, make sure you press down and that it sticks. So let me put this back together and make sure everything sticks. And it may be wise just to use some wet glue so that over time nothing falls apart. I probably should have done wet glue. But see, yeah, it doesn't want to stick. So I'll go back off camera and just add a little bit of glue to those. But then over here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll add another picture off camera. I do have family and friends, and I don't know if they want their pictures on here for everyone to see. So I'll be able to add that one last. I can add that one in later. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of glue. Okay, and here's where I need to go back and add that little pull-out piece. But you can see how this is gonna, I'll be able to put one more picture down there. And then if I want, I can also add, you know, the cut aparts in here, or journaling, or whatever it is that we add to our books. So let me grab, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other pictures off camera. Okay, so these are the cards I'm going to use, and I'll mount my photos to the back. And these are going to go right in here. And then 2 are going to go right up here. So let me see about... So since I stuck these on already, I'm losing some of my space. So these will need to be cut down. But here's where we can add in either more pictures, like I like that one. And see how it's not completely stuck down. So I'm actually going to use a little bit of glue. Okay, so I'm going to jump in for a minute just because I've been going through the process of embellishing the front cover, and I just want to point out, does your brain ever fail you? Because mine has failed me all along from the very beginning. I knew when I made this album that I wanted to use this magnet from Timberline Lodge as some type of closure. It's a magnet. So I talked to my husband, hey, do you happen to have a piece of sheet metal I could use? And he came up with a piece of sheet metal. It's the right size. It's a little wonky, but he cut it from a scrap that he had. He says, how's that going to work? I said, oh, I'm going to sandwich it under the front cover paper. Well, look, here we are. So I am going to do some creative embellishing. I'm going to create a little strap. I can fit it under this cover right here. I'm going to pull it forward, and then I'm going to attach it to this. And then I went through and I have a few cut aparts that I'm going to carefully kind of lay around this as the front of the album. So may not be this exact, but this is what I'm going to do. And I thought I should show you, one, so you see the process how I'm doing it backwards, and 2, you can always find a way to save your project. So it's not a total loss, and I'm going to go ahead and put this together, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so it's time for the reveal. I have my album complete, so let me show it to you. So here we have the Graphic 45 paper line, and here's where I was saying I made my boo-boo. I had intended to use this magnet as a closure all along, and then before I even built the album, I forgot. So here is where I went through and added the magnet as a closure. I used this leftover scrap piece. I just cut it down and I adhered on my magnet just on the back, and then I was able to slip it in between the front and the back cover so it fits in there nicely still. But then that left me with my sheet metal piece to magnetize to, and I needed to cover up. So here is where I have one of the little cut aparts from the collection, and that covers my sheet metal. And then these are a few more of the cut aparts that I just fussy cut out, and these are on foam squares that you can kind of see some dimension there. And then this is the set I had purchased up in Portland. These are wood, heavier than balsa wood, but wood die cuts. So when you open the album, then here is where we have our waterfall features, and this was from the Anna Griffin Dies, but you could always create your own waterfall feature. I have this, I enjoyed using it, and I wanted to demo it. So here is where I added a few more of these chipboard pieces, and I was a little concerned about it flipping, it being thicker, but it doesn't have any big issues. It might get hung up a little bit in the beginning, but you can just kind of work it through. So I have, pictures that I've added from the trip, and then I did add a few of the cut aparts in here. Because I think I love this paper line. I love Graphic 45, hands down. And then over here, here's where I turned the waterfall features so that my vertical pictures would be in the right direction, and then I just added one more chipboard piece, and again you can still flip through it. And then these are like little mementos from the trip. We did a little hike. Here's the receipt for the parking and another chipboard piece. So, and there's some more pieces out of the cut aparts. Here's where we were, the Salmon River, Mount Hood. So the other thing that we did in the album is that when I put down my waterfall pieces, I only did it on 3 sides so that it created a pocket. So this side has a pocket on top for a few of the cut aparts. I want to use this one for journaling, and I do have a few pictures left over, so I'm going to go ahead and put those on the back there, and then they'll just live right in here. And then the same over here, I have like 3 more pieces of cut aparts for journaling and tags over here. So that wraps it up for my album. And then let me show you, this is all I have left over. Now I didn't have the full collection to begin with. I think I had 6 pieces. This is all the cut aparts that are left. I don't have any full sheets of anything. My plan is to make a few cards out of this. And then there was a couple strips on the top, and I trimmed those out, and I used these in a few various places throughout the album. So I appreciate you watching. I hope you got some ideas or some inspiration using the new Graphic 45's Adventure Awaits, I think is the name of the collection. Yeah, Adventure Awaits. I just love this. It worked great with our Portland trip, Mount Hood. And then if you wanted to go ahead, if you are new here, go ahead and give me a like and consider subscribing. I am still working on my channel, and I don't want to wear you guys out, but I'm at 1549, and it's my goal to get up to at least 2,000. And I was thinking by the end of the summer that maybe we need to push it to the end of the year. So if there is anything that you would like to see me work on, or just something demoed, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to look at that or consider that. And so I like to say it is free for you to do, but priceless to me. So until next time, happy crafting. Bye.